This is episode 4 of the Black Line Sprint Tactics tutorial and is a demonstration of Man 1 leading out from the front, giving themselves as much height as possible and managing the gap to Man 2. During this first lap, Man 1 is trying to keep the pace slow. This will allow for a strong acceleration during the second lap, making it difficult for Man 2 to get the height advantage that they need. To keep the pace slow, Man 1 is copying the movements of Man 2. When Man 2 gets height, they get height. This stops Man 2 building up the advantage that they want. At this point in the race, Man 1 gives a strong acceleration. This brings 2 down the track. They go back up the track together, no advantage to 2, and as 2 dives to take the inside, Man 1 cuts down in front of them, reducing the gap. This means they do not have a gap to rush and leaves them struggling to pass. So why does this work? Here we can see the helmet cam of Man 2 after half a lap of the race. You can see how Man 1 taking height, copying the movements of Man 2, keeps the race slow because Man 2 needs to keep the distance between the 2 riders to give themselves room to race. This tactic all comes down to one bend, where Man 1 decides to take the initiative, have a good strong drive on the black line, forcing Man 2 to lose their height to control the gap. When Man 1 then goes back up and takes height in the straight, it forces Man 2 to follow, again to try and keep the gap. The race then progresses, Man 2 needs to do something, so they try to take the inside, but Man 1 cuts down just in front. You can see here the acceleration. Man 1 goes up the track with 2, Man 2 has nowhere to go, tries to take the inside, and Man 1 shuts the door. Here we can see the final angle for this race, which is the seat cam of Man 1 looking back at Man 2. This should nicely show how Man 1 takes height and copies Man 2, and also how close the judgment needs to be when Man 1 comes down and cuts off Man 2 as they try to take the inside with 1 lap to go in the race. Remember, if Man 2 gets their front wheel inside the back wheel of Man 1 and reaches the sprinter's lane first, they have right of way. If Man 1 is not careful and does not give them room to race, they could risk being relegated. Here we can see Man 1 comes down to the black line with a strong acceleration, and you can see how that forces Man 2 to come down. Look how hard they're working to keep the gap. We go back up the track, and as Man 2 dives to take the inside, Man 1 cuts down in front of them. That gave them no gap to rush, and now Man 2 is really struggling. That was a brilliant tactic from Man 1. Thank you very much for watching the Black Line Sprint tutorial. Make sure you like us on Facebook and subscribe on YouTube.